Today we're going to be tackling something a lot of you have been asking about gender representation in higher education.
Oh yeah, this should be good.
It's definitely fascinating stuff.
It is.
We've got data going all the way back to 1970.
Oh.
Showing the trends in bachelor's degrees awarded to men and women across a bunch of different fields.
Cool.
So get ready for some surprises and some maybe not so surprises.
Right.
As we dig into how things have changed, or maybe haven't, over the past few decades.
Yeah, and what we'll see is how those individual choices people make about what to study actually reflect these broader changes in our society.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Are you ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Welcome to Gender Decoded, when numbers align, seeing the stories that data defines. Breaking the barriers, truth untold, insights in gender, the data falls.
We're going to be looking at how men and women have been represented, in college degrees, like over the past 50 years. We've got some really cool data that shows how things have changed, maybe stayed the same in different fields, like from healthcare all the way to agriculture. And it's like, people's choices about what to study. I mean, that can really shape the whole world of work. So it's like bigger than just numbers on a page. Right?
Yeah, totally. It's not just about counting the degrees. It's about understanding the kind of forces that shape those choices. And honestly, sometimes those forces are pretty surprising.
Okay, so let's start with just the basics. We know way more women are going for bachelor's degrees now than they were back in the 1970s, right?
Absolutely. That's a major trend across the board. But here's where it gets really interesting, okay? How that increase breaks down by subject is fascinating. Some areas haven't budged much at all in terms of gender balance, and then others have totally done a complete 180. It's wild.
Yeah, and our source material actually points to a specific event that kind of shook things up. Title IX back in 1972, it outlawed discrimination based on sex in education. Yeah, which was a huge deal for women wanting to study things that they were previously basically shut out of.
Oh, for sure. Title IX, total game changer, no doubt. It's a great example of how legal and social changes can just ripple out, across generations. And it's not just who gets into college, but it's also what they do afterward, their careers and how that shapes the whole fabric of society. You know?
Totally. Okay, let's zoom in on a few specific fields. Yeah. How about healthcare and education? I mean, as you might expect, women are the majority here by far.
Right.
85% in healthcare and 79% in education.
Yeah.
Not exactly shocking.
Right. Totally. Those fields tend to, align with traditional ideas about caregiving and nurturing roles often associated with women. But here's the thing that I thought was kind of surprising. Okay, even with all the advances in healthcare, all the technology and everything, the proportion of women actually increased over this period from 80% to 85%. So I would have thought those super technical specializations might attract more men, but seems like that hasn't really happened.
So I mean, what's the takeaway there? Are we saying that those stereotypes about women and caring are just so ingrained that they overpower even the lure of high tech medicine? That seems a little, I don't know, deterministic, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it's not quite so simple. I mean, we gotta remember that the reasons behind these trends, they're complex. It could be the image of these professions, how they're portrayed in the media, or even the types of mentorship that are available. So I think it's worth thinking about how we can shift those perceptions, especially if we want to diversify these fields even more.
Yeah, good point. Okay, let's go to a field that's seen a huge shift. Psychology. It used to be around 60% female, but now it's a whopping 77%. What do you make of that?
Psychology is super interesting. There's definitely a connection to the emphasis on those interpersonal skills, understanding emotions, those soft skills that are often associated with women. But this shift is so dramatic, it makes you wonder, how has a field going from majority female to almost entirely female, changed the research that's being done? The way mental health is approached even. That's something I would love to see more research on, actually.
Yeah. It makes you wonder if, like, what we even consider important research questions, changes based on, like, who's asking them.
Right.
Okay. Enough with the, like, feel-good trends. Let's talk about STEM. I mean, this is where the gender gap is still, like, staring us right in the face, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, sadly. Computer science, engineering, the physical sciences, like, these areas are still really overwhelmingly male. We're talking, like, 18% of computer science degrees going to women, 20% in engineering. It's like a stark contrast to the progress we've seen, in other areas.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So why haven't we, like, cracked the code on this one?
Well, I mean, the challenges here they're multifaceted. Like, it's not just one thing. I mean, there are cultural biases at play for sure, but also like things like lack of early exposure to STEM fields, fewer female role models, and even like just the feeling of not belonging in those spaces, like that can lead to something called stereotype threat, where, get this, women actually perform worse because of the pressure of like those negative stereotypes. It's like a vicious cycle.
It's like everything is telling women, this isn't your place, even if it's not being said. Like out loud, right?
Exactly. And here's a stat from our research that like blew my mind, okay? Women actually peaked in computer science representation back in 1985 at 37%. And that was right when home computers were being marketed to both boys and girls.
Wow.
Then the industry shifted to that whole like tech bro image, and well, look where we are now.
Wow, that is a powerful example of how like cultural messages can just have like a huge impact.
Yeah.
And not always for the better. It makes you wonder what would have happened if we like kept encouraging girls in tech the way we did, back then.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to a field that's a bit more, I guess, balanced. Business and communications.
Yes. Here we're seeing like near gender parity with women making up almost 50% of graduates. It's a promising sign, and I think it reflects like a few things, like changing perceptions of leadership, more women like breaking through those, corporate glass ceilings.
And don't forget, like way more women are getting business degrees than ever before, right? Like back in the 70s, it was only about 10%, and now it's almost equal. That's a huge, huge leap.
Yeah.
What do you think is like driving that?
I think it speaks to like changing aspirations, but also like the recognition of women's talent in these areas. For a long time, women were kind of seen as better suited for like support roles, but now their leadership potential is being like acknowledged and fostered. It's a positive trend for sure, but we have to keep pushing for like true equality, not just in the numbers, but like in positions of power too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's like, it's interesting to see how some fields are really like, bucking the trends. Like, who would have thought agriculture would be like the poster child for gender balance, right?
Yeah.
Back in 1970, only 4% of ag degrees went to women, and now it's like 50-50.
I know, right? It's a total like transformation. I think it reflects like a broader shift in how we even view agriculture. Like, it's not just about like traditional farming anymore, right? It's about, science, technology, sustainability, feeding a growing population. It's become a really dynamic field, and it clearly appeals to both men and women.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if other like traditionally male-dominated fields could see a similar shift.
Yeah.
Like maybe those perceptions are starting to crumble across the board.
Yeah, I think there's definitely potential for that. I mean, as more women like enter these fields and prove their expertise, it challenges those old stereotypes. But it's not going to happen overnight. I think we need to like actively create, welcoming and supportive environments for women in these spaces.
For sure. Okay, before we wrap up, let's like zoom out a bit,
Yeah.
We've talked about like individual fields, but what about like the bigger picture? What are the key takeaways from all this data?
Well, one thing that really stands out to me is just the power of like cultural norms and societal expectations.
Yeah.
You can see it in the persistence of these gender imbalances in certain fields, like, that whole women are caregivers, men are breadwinners kind of thing. Like, even in 2025, those ideas are still like shaping people's choices.
Yeah. You can't underestimate how much that like background noise influences our decisions, right? Even if we're not like aware of it.
Right.
But we've also seen how those norms can change, right? Like with the surge in women getting business degrees, clearly like things aren't set in stone.
Exactly. And that's where I think like policy and advocacy come in. Title IX is a perfect example of how like intentional interventions can make a real difference. And we need more of that, especially when it comes to like tackling the persistent challenges in STEM, right?
Right. It's not enough to just like hope things will get better on their own. We need to be proactive about about breaking down those barriers and creating opportunities for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this data can be like a powerful tool for that. By understanding the trends, by seeing like where the gaps are, we can, target our efforts more effectively.
Totally, yeah. So this isn't just like an academic exercise, right? This is about understanding like how we got here, and what we can do to shape a more equitable future.
Exactly. And it's not just about women either. I mean, this data raises questions for men too.
Yeah.
Like what does it mean for them to enter fields that have traditionally been seen as like feminine? How do we challenge those like narrow definitions of masculinity? It's a conversation we need to be having, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys are feeling that pressure, that sense they have to like fit into a certain mold, and it's limiting for everyone, really.
Absolutely. Like breaking down these gender stereotypes, it benefits everyone. It allows individuals to like pursue their passions regardless of what, society dictates, right? And it leads to like a more diverse and innovative workforce, which ultimately benefits all of us.
Right, for sure. So, I mean, like if you're listening to this and you're thinking, this is all very interesting, but what does it mean for me? I think the answer is it's a call to action. It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in creating a more equitable world.
Exactly. Whether you're, choosing a major or mentoring a young person or even like advocating for policy changes, your actions can make a difference.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
We can't just wait for someone else to fix these problems, right? We all have a responsibility to step up and do our part. Okay. Before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's bring it back to the data for a sec. We've covered a lot of ground here, but there's one field we haven't really touched on. Humanities.
Yes. Humanities is interesting because we actually see a slight decline in female representation there, even though women still make up like the majority.
Yeah, our source shows that in fields like English, foreign languages, communications, the proportion of women went down a bit. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's partly a reflection of the success we've seen in other fields, right? Like as women have gained, access to opportunities in business, healthcare, STEM, they've kind of branched out beyond those traditional humanities pathways.
So it's not that they're like losing interest in humanities, it's that their options have expanded.
Exactly. It's a sign of progress in a way, but it also raises questions about the value we place on humanities education in our society.
That's a good point. Like, are we sending the message that humanities are less important, less valuable than these other like more practical fields?
It's something to think about. I mean, humanities teach, critical thinking, communication skills, empathy. These are all essential skills, like for any career, for any aspect of life, really.
Yeah, we need to make sure we're not like undervaluing those skills, even as we celebrate, the progress in other areas.
Absolutely. Like a well-rounded education is essential for a thriving society, and that includes the humanities, the arts, the social sciences, along with STEM and everything else.
Yeah, it's like we've been given this glimpse into the future, right? And now it's up to us to decide what we do with it. It's exciting and a little daunting, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. It's like we're not just like passive observers here, right? We have the power to influence how these trends, actually play out.
So if you're listening to this, like, we want to leave you with a few things to kind of ponder. First, like, how does this data resonate with your own life? Like your own career path, your own choices.
Yeah, like maybe it confirms some of your experiences. Maybe it challenges some of your assumptions, But either way, like the goal is to use this knowledge to think critically about the world around you.
Yeah, like maybe you're a young woman considering a career in a field where there aren't a lot of female role models, right? Don't let the statistics discourage you. You can be part of that change, that wave of women like breaking down those barriers.
Totally. Or maybe you're in a position to mentor or support others who are facing, those those challenges. Even small actions can make a difference, right? Like speak up when you see bias, advocate for policies that promote equity, like create a welcoming and an inclusive environment in your own workplace, you know?
It's like that old saying, right? Be the change you want to see in the world. Like we can't just wait for someone else to fix these problems. We all have a responsibility to step up and do our part.
Totally. Yeah, the journey towards gender equity is a collective one, right? It requires all of us to be aware, to be engaged, and to be willing to challenge the status quo.
Well, this deep dive has certainly given me a lot to think about, and I hope it's done the same for you.
I think so too. And remember, like, knowledge is power, right? And the more we understand about these complex issues, the better equipped we are to create a more just and equitable world.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.